A bit chaotic this morning throughout the day, but we're here. Um, I hope all is well today, y'all. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. As I get my stuff together here, we almost there, y'all. We almost there. All right. All right, y'all. We all set in stone now. We all set in stone. I hope all is well with y'all today. Um, it's been a crazy, hectic day for me, but that's what happens when you try to get back in the swing of things. So, I'm glad we're able to jump on first live for the year. And we have our poll from Saturday as far as like what we're going to discuss, and I got a lot of responses on several different platforms. So we had all of our responses from Facebook and from Instagram and from YouTube, and all of them were for overcoming or getting over offenses. So it sounds like this is something that I want to talk about, which is great. So I have a few points here, but before I go into that, my name is Debbie. I am a certified mindfulness coach. This channel is all things mindfulness, meditation. So if you hear any of the meditations on the channel, that is my voice that you hear. But with our lives, we just kind of jump into different mental health topics that you guys asked to discuss. And we do this every Monday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We've been off for, I want to say 2 weeks just because of the holiday. So I'm glad to get things back rolling here, even though I may take another break. Or I'm not going to say may, I will be taking another break just to kind of collect myself and have a lot of things going on personally. So I want to take some time to get things together. But today, it's all about you guys and discussing getting over offenses. So what I'm going to do is, hi CJ, hi Harper, welcome. So what I'm going to do is talk through, I want to say, let's see, 1, 2, 3. So we have about 4 points in regards to getting over offenses. So I'll talk through those points. And then there are 5 affirmations that I want to share for you to take away. So if this is a topic that is difficult for you, by all means, let me know. Like, ask questions. This is a very interactive live, so I would love to hear back from you. If you just joined, my name is Debbie, certified mindfulness coach, and this channel is all things mindfulness, mental health, and this is the topic that we voted on for our poll to discuss today. So let's dive in to the topic, getting over offenses. So why I chose this particular topic is because I feel like just as a society, and this isn't just the US, this is like across the board, right? Like, I feel like as a society, we spend a lot of time on, hi Anna, hi Anthony. I feel like we spend a lot of time on what we're offended by, right? We put a lot of energy into it. And because we spend a whole lot of time and a lot of energy into talking about what we're offended by, whether it be outside factors or things that are going on with us personally, situationally, this is where a lot of our mental health issues, and not going to say all of them, but I feel like this is where a lot of our mental health issues stem from. And if we were able to really dissect and like decide what and pick and choose what we're going to put our energy into versus just kind of flying at the seat of our pants, and as things come, we just try to figure it out as they come instead of it being more proactive and really kind of analyzing and thinking through all of these things, we would be much better off as a society, but then also as individuals and as people, right? So this is why I put this topic in the poll, which I was actually surprised that a lot of people wanted to talk about this, because it is a difficult subject to talk about when we are offended. And I want to say that with, air quotes. And hey, maybe some of the things that I say in this live might offend you because of, the topic. But I hope it's helpful. I hope it brings some additional insight. And even if you have some things that you're currently dealing with now that you're trying to work through, I hope it's helpful. So just going to start with, how do we get over offenses, right? When we are offended, whether that be something that was directly done to us, or even sometimes we take on the offense of other people, right? So if something happens to someone else, something happens to your friend, or something happens to a family member, you automatically take on that offense just because it's, involving someone you love, right? So when we're in those spaces, or we're in those feelings or emotions, the first thing that we want to do is to bring awareness to what those feelings actually are, right? When we think about our emotions, a lot of times we may only bring up 5 core emotions, whether it be sadness, anger, disappointment. Those are the main core, emotions that we may be think that we're feeling. But underlining, it may be embarrassment or hurt, or there's so many other, and we had talked about this before in some of our other lives, as far as the types of feelings and what emotions. There's like 88, I think it is, actual emotions that you can experience. But a lot of times we only talk about 3 or 4 of them, right? So bringing into awareness the feelings and emotions that we're actually experiencing when it comes to this actual offense, and examining that, and giving ourselves space to really understand what we're feeling. Because a lot of times our initial response may be anger, but that is maybe the secondary emotion. There may be something underneath that. So pinpointing what we're feeling is important when thinking about offense, because based off of those feelings and emotions will determine the next steps, right? So first, identify what you're feeling. And also making sure not to ignore them, because a lot of times when we're offended, especially when they're minor offenses, right? If somebody says something in passing or whatever, we just kind of brush it to the side and we ignore it, and we end up blowing up because we're ignoring a lot of small offenses. Whereas if we would have took the time to at least acknowledge the feelings and emotions that are there and process them, so that way we're able to digest and understand what's actually happening internally, it prevents the subconscious survival mode, right? Because we'll go right into survival mode if we're offended. But also it prevents those blowups that happens down the line. So first is bring awareness to your feelings and emotions. Second, and this is going to be for anything that has to do with emotions, we have to examine ourselves first. When it comes to situations, when it comes to dealing with people, when it comes to anything that's outside of our bubble, we always have to start with examining ourselves. Now, granted, it's not to say that you shouldn't be offended. I'm not saying that, but we have to start inward to go outward. So anytime that you're trying to evaluate a situation or evaluate, what to do in these types of situations, always start with self. Always start with examining you. So did I contribute to the situation in any way? Was I clear about my expectations, boundaries, or needs within this particular situation? Am I reacting to the actual offense or to an assumed intention, right? So you may have someone in your life that you're offended by, but you may have already had a preconceived notion about that person, and you're responding to that preconceived notion versus what that person actually did or said. And then, am I holding them to an unrealistic standard? Now, when I say unrealistic standard, I'm not saying that your standard isn't a right standard. Let me explain. Because a lot of times we hold people to a standard that they are unable to they're unable to get there, right? So for example, if you are in a relationship with someone and we hold them to a standard of they should not be cheating on me, right? This should be a monogamous relationship. This should be in a relationship that is only me and them, right? The standard itself isn't unrealistic, right? That's a standard that holds true in a lot of relationships, unless you are in polygamy or anything else. If you're in a monogamous relationship, that's a standard that is a normal standard to have. So it's not unrealistic. But for this person, for this individual, is it unrealistic? And is it something that we know is unrealistic for them because they've cheated over and over again and so on, right? So thinking about all of those things, and I think I would add to this too, is there anything that I'm ignoring in this particular situation to where I continue to be offended, right? So if I'm ignoring something about this particular person, if this person is a certain way, am I ignoring that thing? And that's why I'm continuing to be offended, because I'm ignoring it and then it happens again and then I get offended again. Like those are all factors to take into consideration when thinking about getting over an offense, right? What did I do? Not to say that you're blaming yourself, but what are the things that I'm ignoring? What did I contribute? Did I set clear expectations? Or do I have an unrealistic standard, whether it's unrealistic in general or unrealistic for this person, right? So I hope that is helpful. What am I talking about? I'm talking about offenses. If you look at the, if you look at the note there, it says getting over offenses, and been talking about this since 11 minutes now. So, and do I have a degree? I'm going for my master's degree, but I am a certified mindfulness coach. So there's that. I also said that at the top of the video too. Next, so when it comes to the next point, so examining self, and hold on, here we go. Oh, so after examining self, we talked about, did it contribute to the situation anyway? Was I clear about my expectations, boundaries, and needs? Am I reacting to the actual offense or to an assumed intention behind it? And then am I holding them to an unrealistic standard? Now, next point, number 3, bring these things into perspective, right? So when it comes to examining yourself and being aware of your feelings and emotions, then you're able to go outside of self, right? And bring things into perspective. So are we able to reframe the narrative based off of what we examined about ourselves, right? We examined our feelings, we're examined our approach and our intentions and all of those things, right? Now we have to shift our mindset into who, what, when, where, why, how, right? Going back to class, back to English class, right? Who is involved? Is this someone that is close to me? Is this a coworker? Is this a friend? Is this an acquaintance? Is this a stranger? Is this someone in passing? Like, who is this person? Are they worth even my response, right? So thinking through the who, what was said, what was done, and is with that being said, with what was said or with what was done, is it an offense to where I would have to even give it a response, or I would have to even address it, right? When? So sometimes when thinking about when was this an offense that was said directly to me or done directly to me, or was it a third party? And this is when it comes into the offense of other people, or if someone was to bring you something that someone else said when they were with them or whatever, like, oh, such and such said this about you, or such and such said that about you. You would approach that differently than you would approach that same thing being said to you directly, right? So who, what, when? When it comes to the why, you may not get an answer of why. And sometimes when it comes to an offense, we have a hard time digesting that point that, oh, they did this. I don't know why they did this, and I don't have the answers as to why. And that's why we hold on to the offense, because we don't have the answers of why. We're not always going to get those answers. So sometimes letting go of offense is letting go the ability to know why. It's also letting go of the ability to get an apology, right? Sometimes we hold on to offenses as a form of revenge to the other person, because that's the only thing that we can hold on to until we get what we're looking for, right? So why all of that a lot of times is where the offense, letting go of the offense stops, right? So just kind of thinking about all of those areas. Are they worth it? Does this even involve me? Because sometimes we're offended by things that don't even have to do with us. Asking our questions why we are offended, and asking that question over and over and over again as a form of self-torture. And it keeps the offense going, putting it on that loop of going over and over and over and over and over the situation. But sometimes even just asking, like, why am I offended? And really like understanding the why. Is what they said, is there some truth to it? Is what they said or what they did really how you feel about yourself? And it's a wound or a trauma that you still have to heal. Just really thinking about all of those aspects can really help you to, one, calm down, because a lot of times we have these offenses that we're dealing with, and we're acting out of our own rage and anger. By really taking the time to evaluate all of these things will help you to calm down, but to bring things into perspective and to shift and change your mindset about the situation in general. Is it something that you can change, right? Sometimes we get offended and we try to shift and change the other person, and we're not going to be able to change people, y'all. As much as we can try, we can give advice and we can be as kind and as sweet to the person. We can try our best to comfort them or to be there for them or to support them. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to change them. So if you see someone that has the same cycle of offense when it comes to you specifically, you have to take into consideration what I can change, what I can't change, what I can resolve with this person and what I cannot resolve, and then choose whether I want to continue to participate in this offense. If someone is continuously offending you for whatever reason. Right? Let me make sure I didn't miss anything there. Another good gauge as far as like deciding whether you're going to even continue to participate in this offense is, are my efforts of resolve having me act in a way that isn't authentic to me or who I want to be? When this offense has you stepping outside of who you are as a person and who you are wanting to be or who you are striving to be, because sometimes at a certain point, us acting out may have been a part of our past, and that may be something that you want to change. And in your efforts of changing, you want to think about, is this going to take me back to the old me? Is this going to take me back to a version of myself that I've been trying to grow from and to be a better version of? And a lot of times when you think of it in that way, that is more than enough to let some things go. Because it's like, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back to that mindset. I don't want to go back to, where I was before. So those are some of the questions that I ask myself. Why am I offended? Is what they're saying or doing truth to add any truth to who I am? Can I change or resolve this person or situation? And then are my efforts having me act differently than what I would want to act, right? So keeping that all in mind, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. How does the offense affect your life? That's another thing to think about. Sometimes we have to choose peace over proving a point. And I know that's easier said than done. But it's sometimes you have to choose peace and serenity and some type of solace. Thank you, Yolanda. Sometimes you have to really choose peace over you making the other person understand you, right? Because sometimes some people are committed to not liking you. Sometimes people are committed to not understanding you. And the more you put your energy into trying to force them to understand or force them to get it, it drains you and exhausts you, and it takes all of your energy to where you could have saved that energy into putting it into restoring yourself, into restoring your own personal well-being and whatever damage the offense is already done. You could have poured that energy into you versus pouring your energy into making them understand or forcing them to get it. And I'm saying that as somebody who has struggled with this. I still struggle with this from time to time because sometimes you just like, I need this person to understand why I am offended. I need this person to understand why I'm frustrated. I need this person to just get it. And they're not. They're not going to get it. They're not going to get it, y'all. No matter how much you try. They may get it down the line after, they've done some reflection on themselves, but in the moment, they're not going to get it. And it's up to us as people to be able to decipher when that is. When you are in a conversation with a person and it's going in circles and you know that they're just not, you've explained it, you've done your best top tier explanation of stuff, right? You've done a whole lot in explaining and breaking it down and how you feel and why you feel that way and how it's hurt you and whatever, and they don't get it. At that point, why continue to pour into that person to get them to understand, right? It's up to them now. You put it out on the table. It's up for them to pick up all of the pieces. You put all the silverware on the table. It's up for them to pick up the silverware and to take it and eat it, right? Or eat with it. But at this point, at that point, there's nothing really more that you can do, right? So thinking about those questions that you can ask yourself, I know I went through a lot of different questions, but whatever ones that you feel are that hold true for you, that will help you to let things go, is important. They may never get it. They may not, and let's be real, they may actually get it but don't want to let you know that they got it. Or they may actually get it but not care, right? And we can't make people care. We can't make people understand. We can't make people digest, and we can't make people apologize. We can't make people do any of that. So all we can do is do what we can. And then at that point, we then decide whether we want to continue to participate, right? So those are the questions that I have. I think those are all of them. Why am I offended? Is what they said or did true to me? Can it change? Can I change it? Can I resolve it? Are my efforts having me act in a way that isn't authentic to me or who I want to be? How does the offense affect my life? And yeah, so that's what that was. The next point I kind of talked about was put more energy into your responses rather than to the offense itself. So a lot of times we spend a lot of time in going over and over and over what the offense actually was rather than resolve. And sometimes the resolve is just within ourselves, right? Sometimes the resolve is, this person said something to me, I was offended because there is a half truth in it, but all of it isn't true. So then your goal then at that point is to put energy into yourself in resolving that truth within yourself, not necessarily resolving with that person, because that person may have been a bystander. That person might have been a stranger. That person might have been somebody you will never see before. But whatever they said or whatever they did, created a trigger within you to where now you're left in dealing with it. So it's more so of dissecting and understanding, okay, what did this person say? Or what did this person do? What do I believe in regards to what this person said and did? Is there any truth there? And if there is, that's something that can work out within myself. But I can let go of whatever this person did, because this is silliness, right? So putting more energy into your response rather than the offense itself. Once you shift your mindset to the actual response and how you respond, and whether that response is to that person or within yourself, putting more energy into that response, and it being a response that is authentic and real, but also not something that's going to make you step outside of yourself. That's what's most important. And let me make sure I don't have any other points. The last one is just thinking about forgiveness and gratitude. I know we talked about forgiveness a lot in December, I feel like. But just even thinking about forgiveness and gratitude wherever it's needed. Sometimes forgiveness is just understanding that this person's situation is not this person or situation is not what I needed it to be, right? Understanding that this person or situation is not it's not conducive to where I am currently, right? And sometimes that's what the forgiveness is, right? Understanding that this person is not at the level of expectations, or doesn't have the expectations that I have when it comes to life, and they're not at the level that I'm at, right? So sometimes we have to forgive people just for that. Like they're not there yet, and I can let that go and walk away from it. And I feel like a lot of times, if we would just take that approach, we'll be able to get through a lot of the offenses that we experience on a day to day. I would say both, forgiving yourself or them, or both, because a lot of times our forgiveness. Have you ever been in a situation where you were offended by someone and you didn't hate them, you didn't dislike them, you just now know that, hey, this just isn't the right person for me, whether it be a romantic relationship, a friendship, even family members. Like I can recall a lot of situations where I was heavily offended by a person, but I didn't hate them. It wasn't like I didn't hate them. It's not that I didn't even still have love for them or care for them. I just now know, and people may experience this a lot with parents, right? Where your parent just did not have the ability to be the parent that you needed them to be. They just didn't have it. And sometimes when you look at situations in that way, it's easier for you to let things go and to move on and to get over an offense, versus us putting the actions and tying the actions to the love that I had for that person, right? There are a lot of even relationships that I'm like, okay, I may still have love for that person. I don't like what they did, but I still have love for that person. But that doesn't mean I have to participate in relationship with them anymore, right? So just like really thinking about, yes, values don't align. A lot of times when they talk about how people are in your life for a season, or for a lifetime, right? Like sometimes you outgrow relationships, and in you exercising that growth, you surpass the people that you have been surrounding yourself with, and you've outgrown them. And now we're expecting them to operate on the level of our growth, and they don't have the ability to do so. So that's what I mean by forgiveness, in a way of understanding that that person or situation is not what you needed them to be. And I can even add to that, not what you needed them to be anymore, right? Because that happens too. So there's a lot that goes into that. But really evaluating the relationship and the type of relationship that you're having with this particular person, and understanding that there is a possibility that you guys are growing in different directions. And not to say that the other person is growing, they just may be growing in a different direction. They're going this way and you're going that way. And because you're going opposite ways, there continues to be a friction or a continued offense. But you still have love for that person. You still care about that person. You know what I mean? So there's a whole lot that can go into that. But having some sense of understanding of that will help with thinking about the offenses that we are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Because the way that you may encounter that with a coworker would be different than, how you would encounter that with a friend or with, a romantic relationship or whatever. Even when you think about people who are roommates versus, people that, because sometimes people go in these roommate situations and they may be friends in the beginning, and then because you're living with someone, it's a different, your proximity is different. And when proximity changes, then the actual relationship will begin to change and evolve, and it may not evolve in the way that you wanted it to evolve. So really think about that. There's so much that goes into that, but I think it's important to really think through understanding that person's where they currently are and how it relates to your current values and where you're going. And I think that's the end of the points here before we go into affirmations. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. The last thing was just based off of all of your evaluation, choose whether you want to continue to participate in those relationships. That's ultimately the final piece of it. Once you do all of your evaluation, you talk about, where you're pouring your energy. If someone's giving you, if someone is doing over, like just offending you over and over and over again, you then have the decision of whether you're going to continue to participate in that offense. And that's why I talked about examining yourself in the beginning, because sometimes we're offended in situations that, not to say that we shouldn't be offended by, but sometimes we're offended by situations that can be resolved and fixed, but then sometimes it can't be. And you then choose whether you want to continue to participate. So I hope that's helpful, y'all. So I have 5 affirmations for you to take away tonight. Feel free to write these down if you wish to. Feel free to use these affirmations however you wish to. If you need to change the language, feel free to change the language so that way it makes sense and holds true for you. There's several different ways you can use affirmations. You can write them down in a journal. You can put them on a sticky notes. I usually like to do sticky notes and just kind of post them where I would need them. I would have like sticky notes on my work laptop, and then have some on my mirror. So you can use them however you want to use them. Thank you, Yolanda, for joining. I really appreciate it, of course. And then for when it comes to affirmations, you can use them by reciting them in the mornings, however you feel you need to use them that way. You can also record them so that way you can listen to yourself saying the affirmations versus saying them in the mornings. So those are all ways that you can use affirmations. So let's jump into the 5 that we have. The first one is, I acknowledge my unresolved feelings with patience and self-reflection. I acknowledge my unresolved feelings with patience and self-reflection. I acknowledge my unresolved feelings with patience and self-reflection. So that goes back to our first point, which was bringing awareness to your feelings. So really taking the time to acknowledge your unresolved feelings with that patience and self-reflection is so important. Number 2, I understand peace is often better than fighting unnecessary battles. I understand peace is often better than fighting unnecessary battles. I understand peace is often better than fighting unnecessary battles. Sometimes we be fighting battles that we don't need to fight, y'all. just let it go. Just let it roll off your back, y'all. Because sometimes we do spend a lot of time fighting unnecessary battles, and the life that we are living now, we don't have time, y'all. We just don't. We don't have time for the foolishness. So we have to be very cognizant of how we are spending our time when it comes to fighting battles. Save your energy for the battles that you actually got to fight, y'all. Like we trying to buy eggs, okay? We try we trying to, get through these next 4 years, okay? We trying to There's a lot of other battles that we could be fighting. A little petty nonsense, we don't have time for it. So that's number 2. Number 3, I am in charge of how I feel and choose serenity. I am in charge of how I feel and choose serenity. I am in charge of how I feel and choose serenity. So just reminding ourselves that we are in charge of our feelings and our emotions. And sometimes our feelings and our emotions seem like they are in charge, right? And that's not the case. You have the ability to shift your mindset, to shift how you feel. There may be some underlining feelings here and there, but you get the chance to shift that and to change that, right? So this is just a reminder of that. And this is just a reminder that you are in charge, right? You tell your body what to do. You have the ability to tell your mind what to do. You just have to channel that and to do that. And sometimes us allowing our feelings and our emotions to overtake us, not to say that it's not valid, right? Sometimes us allowing us to continue that and to stay there is what has us go into exhaustion and burnout and overwhelm, and sometimes we take on these things that we don't even need to take on. So really kind of thinking through, what you are allowing to happen emotionally, and remind yourself that you have the ability to change how you feel. Okay, and you are in charge. I am in charge of how I feel. Yes, sometimes we let people hijack our. Yes, because sometimes you may be going through life and like yada 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 yada. I'm happy today. This is a great day, and somebody comes says one thing, and now the rest of our day is messed up, right? Like you have the ability to let that brush off and to keep it moving and go along with your happy-go-lucky day. And I heard someone say earlier that they're, you know, making sure that we're living every day like it's our last, and that there are no bad days. And I had to really think about that. I'm like, what you mean there are no bad days? Any day that you're breathing, any day that God has given us another day to live, that is a good day, right? So not allowing, like you said, not allowing people, situations, and things to hijack our entire day is growth and is progress. And with that mindset, it helps us to get over offenses, because if we really think about it, we could be offended every day, all day with the stuff that happens. If we really paid attention to all of the things that happens in our lives, we would be offended all day. We'll be mad all day, right? So really understanding that, and really understanding the climate that we're in. There are wars happening. We got half of the country that got snowed out this past couple of days. Like people are losing power. People in New Orleans that died. There's like just so many people going through things. It's like if somebody offended me or saying something to me in passing is not something that I need to spend all of my energy and time into. So really putting all of that into perspective and just reminding ourselves of that. Two more affirmations here. I am grateful for these lessons, and I forgive. I'm sorry. I am grateful for these lessons, and I forgive to free myself of their weight. I am grateful for these lessons, and I forgive to free myself from their weight. I can't talk today. I am grateful for these lessons, and I forgive to free myself from their weight. I felt this was important because we want to take the time to, when it comes to these situations and people that we're talking about, to have some gratitude for the lessons that we learn in these situations, but also we have to forgive to free ourselves of the weight of those lessons. I hope that makes sense. Because a lot of times we'll say, oh, I'm so grateful. Like, even though this situation was bad or this situation wasn't the greatest situation, I'm grateful for the lesson. But that doesn't mean that that lesson hasn't done or taken a toll on you, right? That doesn't mean that that lesson hasn't created some form of trauma. It doesn't mean that that lesson didn't create some form of PTSD or triggers or things that you'll have to heal from, right? So just understanding that, yes, it's great, it's wonderful to have growth from these lessons that we've learned in these very difficult situations, but also understanding that forgiveness has to happen in order for you to release the weight of it, because there's still weight there, right? If someone hands you some luggage, right, and the luggage you have in your hand is heavy, but even with that, you have the process of being able to heal from whatever luggage that they gave you. That luggage is still there, right? The weight is still there. So even though you may have learned the lesson, right? You have the luggage in your hand and it's heavy, and you're like, okay, now I know this luggage is heavy. I get that it's heavy. But until I'm able to let it go and to drop the luggage, the weight is still there. You're still holding it. So it's important to learn the lesson, but it's also important to let it go, y'all. Let it go. Um, yes, it takes a while to get to that, especially emotional betrayal. Yes, absolutely. It's and when we think about um the emotional aspect of it, depending on what phase of life, like I was saying earlier, someone asked like how did I had a degree. I'm in my master's for counseling. And when in regards to human development, there's different stages when it comes to the ages, and each stage affects the next stage that comes after it. So if you have something happen in adolescence, is going to follow you until you heal. So there's people that may have stopped their progress and their growth in adolescence, and they're in their 60s still trying to figure out life, and they're still operating as if they're still 14, 15, 16 years old based on the trauma that they experienced. So the more that we take the time to release that weight, the more that we'll be able to progress in the development stage that we're in. So that way we're not stuck in 92, or we're not stuck in 83, or we're not stuck in 74. You know what I mean? When it comes to trauma and how we are relating to people, how we attach to individuals, and how we interact with situations, especially difficult situations. So it does take time, but it's very important to understand that we have to let it go. It's not just about learning the lesson, but it's also letting things go and releasing them. And then last affirmation. I feel like I've been talking a lot, y'all. I'm sorry. I've been running my mouth. And last one. I have the power to decide how I invest my energy, and I choose to focus on evolutionary growth. I have the power to decide how I invest my energy, and I choose to focus on evolutionary growth. Last time, I have the power to decide how I invest my energy, and I choose to focus on evolutionary growth. Shift your energy to your growth. Shift your energy to being a better version of you. Shift your energy to, like I said, the lessons that you're learning. Shift your energy to that. Spending all day offended is exhausting. It's exhausting, y'all. Spending all day offended is tiresome. it will burn you out. And we have enough to go through when it comes to our lives than to deal with the offense of others. And I say the offense of others, whether it be someone that has offended you directly or taking on others' offenses. And I've been someone that takes on others' offenses. If someone offends my sister, if someone offends my mother, if somebody offends one of my friends, oh, I'm going to bat for them. But at a certain point, you have to think about your own mental well-being. And sometimes we jeopardize our own mental well-being to prove a point, to right or wrong. And that's not necessarily how life works. Sometimes life isn't fair. Sometimes life, we get into situations where we miss the mark, or we accepted something that we shouldn't, or we didn't set boundaries the way that we should have, or we stayed in a situation longer than we should have. There's so many different aspects that goes into it. So the more that we choose our battles and understand that even though we are offended, it doesn't equal our worth. I think sometimes we equate someone else's choices to our personal worth. And because this person made this choice, or because this person did this to me, that automatically determines how worthy I am. And that's not the case. The choices that people make is based off of how they feel about themselves or how they feel about others, and it may be skewed. And it may not be, you may not even be the other. It's because they feel a certain way about women, or they feel a certain way about Black people, or feel a certain way about whatever. It may not even have to do with you personally. So understand that people's choices do not equate your worth. X that out. Okay, just because somebody made a bad choice doesn't mean that just because someone abandoned you, just because your parents abandoned you, or just because a spouse abandoned you, or just because someone decided to cuss you out one day, or just because somebody did this or did that, that does not equate to your worth. It does not equate to how beautiful and authentic and how wonderful of a person that you are. Right? It doesn't equate to that. So I think that's the last thing I'll say on that. I'll go back to the affirmations in case anyone missed it. I acknowledge my unresolved feelings with patience and self-reflection. I understand peace and is often better than fighting unnecessary battles. I am in charge of how I feel and choose serenity. I am grateful for these lessons, and I forgive to free myself from their weight. I have the power to decide how I invest my energy, and I choose to focus on evolutionary growth. I hope this was helpful, y'all. Again, if this is your first time, my name is Debbie. I'm a certified mindfulness coach. You can always get our mindfulness newsletters if you go to haveninspired.com and sign up. It's a completely free newsletter. Just give you updates on our lives, as well as any other mindfulness trips and tricks and tips and things of that matter. Also, if you're looking for anyone to do workshops, I do mindfulness workshops, meditation and journaling workshops for events, churches, companies, and schools. So feel free to check me out there. What else? Am I missing anything? And you can also check out my book on the website as well. It's called Now Self, Let Me Be Great, an inspiration and workbook. So you can check that out if you have, want to explore self-worth, learn a little bit more about my story. I'm based out of Chicago. Awesome. Yes, go ahead and record the affirmations. It definitely helps to listen to yourself say the affirmations. So absolutely. And then the channel is all things affirmations and meditation. So feel free to check out the other meditations and things on the channel. I am Christian based, so there are Christian based meditations as well. Make sure I'm not missing anything. You can get the book on Amazon. The link's in the bio. And yeah, so this month I probably am going to take some hiatus. I know I was already on hiatus, but it's January. I got a lot of stuff I got to get done. So I might take a hiatus. So next Monday, I most likely will not have a live. The Monday after that, I may not either. I will keep you all updated on the community, area, and make sure I'm not missing anything. You will still get some meditations though. So I will be sprinkling some new meditations in for the month. But other than that, y'all all have a great rest of your day. Y'all be blessed. And I will see you soon. Just keep a lookout on the community area for updates for lives. Or sign up for the newsletter. I'll be sending out newsletters there too. Talk to you soon. Bye.